greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is John Campea, and this is a companion video. What are companion videos? Well, I'm awfully glad that you asked. See, every day on the John Campea Show, Monday through Friday, we take time to take live questions, but we don't always have time to get around to all the live questions that get sent in. But I want to make sure those questions get answered properly in a video, so we gather up those unused questions and we address them here in companion videos. And today is Monday, August the 26th. So these are all questions and comments from you guys, the viewers, sent in during this morning's Monday, August the 26th, John Campea Show that we didn't have time for, but let's get around and start getting caught up on those right now. We're going to start things off here with Mighty Tank 1, who writes, "What I was never sure of with you, that scene from 500 Days of Summer is a gut punch. Joseph Gordon-Levitt is great in it." Joseph Gordon-Levitt is great in them. It's one of his best performances, honestly. And that scene is really great. And it's not just because of that one line, but it's life. You know, when she says, when I just woke up one day and I was sure of what? What I was never sure of with you. I mean, it's hard. It's hard to hear. It's devastating, but it's life and it's fair. And at the same time, it was gentle. I mean, seriously, Mark Webb's film, 500 Days of Summer, I think we've gotten so accustomed to talking about how special of a little movie it is. I think a lot of people have forgotten how special of a little movie it is. Seriously, if you guys haven't checked out Joseph Gordon-Levitt's film, directed by Mark Webb, 500 Days of Summer, you absolutely should check it out, because I actually think it's a really, really great film, and I think you will too. And you're right, Mighty Tank, that's a great moment in it. All right, James Lokman writes, "Rob, who is not here, have you seen the new Darth Maul with robot legs from Sideshow Collectibles? Rob, I also love the movie The Final Countdown." I believe, if I'm not mistaken, Rob has actually talked to me about that. Hold a second. Darth Maul, side legs, Sideshow. Hold a second. Let me just see if I can find what I'm talking about here, because I believe he has talked to me about that. So I'm going to go out on a limb here. I can't remember 100% for sure, and I don't want to speak for Robert Meyer Burnett, but I believe he has specifically, I think he's the one who told me about that, if I'm remembering it correctly. So yes, I do believe he's seen it, and he's probably raved about it because he likes the Darth Maul character. Brandon Blake writes, "I'd like to see a what if Odin didn't die." That would be interesting. I mean, one of the interesting shows they've got coming up on Disney Plus is What If. So it takes one of the MCU movies, and imagine if one detail was different, right? So like one of the things they really highlighted was, what if in Captain America, the First Avenger, something happened and Steve wasn't in the capsule when they injected him with the super soldier serum, but rather something went wrong and Peggy Carter ended up in that, and she came out with the super soldier serum. What happens then? It's an interesting concept, and what if Odin didn't die? How would that have affected Thanos and his whole quest? That'd be interesting to see. Luis Blanco writes, "After the Moon Knight announcement, I have to say there's a part of me that actually that actually believes Rob and Bob Iger do play squash on a weekly basis. Hashtag Rob and Bob." Yes, I mean, honestly, I mentioned this on the show this morning, but even if you told me 5 minutes before the Disney Plus presentation began at D23, if you had told me they're going to announce 3 new Disney Plus Marvel shows today, I never would have guessed that Moon Knight would be one of them. Never. And when they said it, I told Rob this several times. I was sitting there going, oh God, I wish Robert could be here. Because Rob probably would have been standing. He would have ripped his clothes off like a deranged soccer fan and ran around the auditorium. It just would have been mayhem, Luis. Would have been absolute mayhem. Patrick Conway writes, "WandaVision sounds so crazy, weird, and awesome." It sounds bonkers. I mean, this whole concept they've got going. Let me bring this over here again. But this whole concept they got going here, I mean, part wacky sitcom, part epic Marvel Universe story. Sounds crazy and ridiculous, and I am all on board. And for all the reasons Rob said it sounded great, I completely agree with him. All right, JMeister25 writes, "Over under 35%, Netflix will be done in a year and a half." Oh, zero. Netflix is doing great. A lot of people watch their things. They've got a lot of revenue. I mean, they operate in a deficit, yes, but when you're a company that big that's generating the amount of revenue that they generate, like they literally generate billions a month. They're fine. And they put out great programming. Like, we just finished talking about, things like Umbrella Academy. And like, forget the Marvel stuff. Umbrella Academy, Mindhunter Season 2, Stranger Things, The Crown is coming back. I mean, they are loaded with great shows. Magnificent shows. Chances that they'll be done in a year and a half? Well, never say zero because anything can happen, but I'd say it's more closely to 1% or 2%. Netflix is going to be fine. They've got a tough road ahead. They're going to be facing challenges they've never faced before, but they will still be here a year and a half from now. I have no doubt about that. Patrick Conway writes, I think Moon Knight all depended on how they handle Hawkeye, especially if we are going to see more of what Clint did in the 5 years between Infinity War and Endgame. I don't agree. I don't agree with you at all. I don't think what they're going to do with Moon Knight is in any way, shape, or form dependent on what they're doing with that Hawkeye series. I really don't. I mean, if they're going to go very hard and brutal, but I don't think it's going to be in between those years either. Now maybe I missed an announcement, and that's fine because, look, I've never been all that interested in standalone Hawkeye or standalone Black Widow stuff, to be honest with you. But I believe this is happening after the events of Endgame. I believe, and I could be wrong, that this Hawkeye show takes place after the events of Endgame. I could be wrong about, maybe I'm forgetting about a big announcement or something like that. It's possible, but even if it wasn't, I really disagree, actually. I don't think that what they're going to do with Moon Knight will have anything to do and be completely disassociated from and not dependent at all on what they do with the Hawkeye series. That's just my sense at any rate. Zaya writes, have you ever held your breath during a movie scene that takes place underwater to see if you would survive that situation? No, Zaya, I don't think I have. I mean, there have been many tense situations in movies where I find myself holding my breath just because of the tension, like, but not like, he's trying to swim from there to there underwater. I think I'll hold my breath along with him just to see how I don't think that's the strangest sounding thing in the world, but I have myself honestly never done that. No, I haven't done it, but I can see why you would try doing it. You know what? Now, Zaya, that you've planted that in my head, I may actually try that the next time I see a movie where they're doing something like that. All right. James Lokman writes, Season 2 of Mindhunter was amazing. It was fantastic. Some people are telling me they really liked it, but they didn't think it was good as Season 1. I think it exceeded Season 1. I really do. I thought Mindhunter Season 2 was great. Anyway, I got to say Season 2 belonged to Holt McCallany, however you pronounce his last name. He plays Bill. His acting was phenomenal, and I agree. I feel like Season 1 was his partner's main season. I feel like that was his season. He was the lead guy. I feel like this season, Bill is front and center. And I can't help but wonder if next season it'll be, I always forget the girl's name from Fringe, but I wouldn't be surprised at all if next season she's front and center. And if they just rotate like that. But whatever they're doing, I thought the season was spectacular. I very much enjoyed it. Both the stuff between him working on the serial killer stuff, but also the stuff with his son, I thought was very compelling, dealing with all the stuff going on with work and trying to be the face of this whole thing. It was just really well done, and I agree with you. I thought Bill was the front and center character this season. All right, Cameron Belgrade writes, does Sony or Disney own the rights to Mysterio? I believe that would be Sony. I think Sony has the rights to Mysterio. James Argenta writes, could Rey be force-possessed by Sidious in teaser? Well, of course, anything's possible. I mean, it's possible that Rey we see with the double-bladed lightsaber and everything, it's possible to some degree or another that that's actually not even Rey. It's possible that what we see is actually a bunch of gummy bears molded together by Ewoks to look like Rey. I mean, that's ridiculous, but it's possible. I mean, it's possible. So yes, to the question, is it possible? Could Rey be force possessed by Sidious in that little teaser that we got? Yeah, it's a possibility. I don't think likely. But possible? Yeah, absolutely. Willow Yang writes, I loved Breaking Bad's series finale and thought that it was near perfect. Fingers crossed that El Camino doesn't disappoint. Yes, I agree. It was a very solid series finale. in a world where even the best shows quite often don't have good series finales, I find more times than not, series finales don't live up to the shows that they're the finales of, to be honest with you. It's a very rare exception, but I thought Breaking Bad was a really good series finale. But in as much as it was a good series finale, it does leave a wide open question about what happens to Jesse after this. And there was story to tell. So we'll see. I mean, look, even though if this El Camino movie sucks, it doesn't affect, I don't believe it affects the legacy of the Breaking Bad show at all. I don't think it'll change the way anybody looks back at Breaking Bad. I don't think that'll affect it one little bit. Like, I hate the prequels, but it doesn't affect one iota how I look back at the original Star Wars films, right? So even if El Camino's terrible, I don't think it'll affect the legacy of Breaking Bad in any way, shape, or form. And right now, there's no reason to believe it's going to suck. I mean, it could be fantastic, right? But even if it's bad, I don't think it'll hurt too much. Amin writes, one of two. Something I feel most people are overlooking is that unlike Netflix, Disney Plus will have extras like behind-the-scenes videos for its films and also TV shows, I believe. What are your thoughts on this? And do you think this matters? Or is it much to do about nothing really? I know I usually like watching extra features. I like extra feature stuff. As a matter of fact, Hulu already does this. HBO already does this. Like, for instance, when you're watching Handmaid's Tale, it'll always tell you at the beginning of an episode, Handmaid's Tale. Stay tuned after the show to watch some behind the scenes stuff of this. Game of Thrones has been doing that for a while. You know, after the episode would be done, they do a little like featurette of behind that scene, what was going on in the mind of the showrunners and the actors and putting that, episode together or whatever. It's not new or unique. It's been done before, but I think it's a good thing to do. You own the platform. Why not throw a little bit of that material in there? Will it be a game changer? I don't think it's a game changer, to be honest with you, admin. Look, I think it's more than much ado about nothing, but I think it's less than a big deal. So it's it means something. Is it really significant? I wouldn't say it's really significant, but it's a nice little add-on because like you, I like watching that little stuff. My wife doesn't care about watching that stuff. It's like we're watching, if she's got the remote control in her hand, when an episode of Handmaid's Tale ends, she's clicking off. If the remote control happens to be in my hand, I let it run so we can watch, the behind the scenes stuff. But, so yeah, more than much ado about nothing, less than a big deal. So it kind of falls in the middle for me there a little bit. All right. Jonathan Sotelo writes, new Patreon supporter. Well, thank you so much, Jonathan, for being a Patreon supporter. Have you seen Hyperdrive on Netflix? I have not. I've had a few people ask me that now, but no, I haven't seen a single episode of that. I've never even seen a trailer for it, to be honest with you. It's American Ninja Warrior meets Fast and Furious. It's produced by Charlize Theron, and UFC fighter Michael Bisping does the color commentating. That's interesting. I like the Count, Michael Bisping. He was a loudmouth at times, and I was cheering very strongly against him when he was fighting George St. Pierre, obviously, because it was GSP. But I like the Count. I like Michael Bisping. I think he's a really good personality for the UFC. I'm glad he still does color commentary. But that's interesting to hear. But nope, you're not the first person that's asked me about Jonathan. But like I said, I've not even seen a trailer for it. So not yet. Haven't seen anything on it yet. All right, the Bearded One writes, Andrew Luck retiring is understandable with all hits and injuries. Definitely surprised, though. It must have sucked to hear Colts fans booing him. See, here's the thing, though. I got it. Like, when I heard he retired, I thought, what the hell? He's not even 30. But when I saw him telling the story, it made sense. His whole career has been plagued with injuries. A lot because the first part of his career, they never had any offensive line. Andrew Luck was getting hit more than any other quarterback in the league for years. As a result, he sustained a lot of injuries. And when he was doing his press conference and talking about, I just realized my whole career had been about getting injured, going through rehab, returning, getting injured, going through rehab, returning, getting injured, going through long rehab, returning. And that the fact that he hasn't even really been able to practice, hey, you know what? He's got all the money in the world. Why not walk away when you can walk away? And I get it. And as far as the audience booing him, here's the context. It was during a game, a preseason game, and news broke that he was retiring. Nobody had any details. The news just broke that he's retiring. It was like basically a week until the season started. And that seems like not a cool move, announcing your retirement 1 week before the season starts. That seems like not a cool move. And you went through an entire season in 2017 without him even in the lineup. He's been paid millions of dollars. So I get it. That didn't hit the fans very well. But remember, that was before he had a chance to go to the podium and explain why he made the decision. And because I was shocked to hear that he was retiring. And then when I heard his explanation, I thought, you know what? Good for you making that decision. Your bank is filled with tens of millions of dollars. You have enough money to live happily, and your children live happily for the rest of your and their lives. Walk away. And you know what? If the passion comes back a year or two from now, you're still really young, come back. But right now, yeah, retire. And I don't blame the fans, because they didn't have the benefit of hearing his press conference afterwards. It broke before he wanted the news to break. And so I don't blame anybody here. To be honest, I don't blame anybody. All right, Jonathan Sotelo writes, also, Charlize Theron does pop up in the show. Well, if she's a big executive producer on that, she's got to pop up in it, right? And that makes sense. Really Tired 64 writes, C-3PO has bright red eyes now. Is he evil too? I don't think he's evil. I think that's a little bit of a nod to the Dr. After. I talked about this. Let me see if I'm writing this right. I believe that's a nod to the Dr. Aftra. I think it's Aftra. I think that's the right thing. Yeah. Or Dr. Afra. Afra, not Aftra. Sorry, my apologies. So in Dr. Afra, I should say, she has these two droids that are basically C-3PO and R2-D2. Only they love to kill and murder. That's the big thing. They love to kill and murder. They delight in nothing more than murdering and killing, non-droid people. Here's a little shot of that droid. And he's got the red eyes, right? They're just basically murder droids. They are psychopathic killers. All they want to do is kill human beings. That's what they want to do. That's what they're basically designed for. And when C-3PO sat up and had the red eyes, remember, there are other shots we see where he's got a gun. So I don't think he's gone evil. I just think maybe somewhere inside they programmed him for a little bit of combat. And when he's in combat mode, the eyes go red, which is a little bit, again, I think of a little bit of a nod of the head to the character, the droids in Dr. Afra. Anyway, that's just my thought on this. I don't think he's evil. Sheepdog117 writes, genius storytelling how the Empire's hubris led to their defeat by an inferior force of Ewoks. Like a wise man once said, screw you, I love the Ewoks. Dude, don't worry, guys. I won't go into my full Ewok spiel here, but I will say this again. The whole thing about the Ewoks, some people criticize the whole inclusion of Ewoks in Return of the Jedi and what it meant. I think everybody's missing a huge thing there. It was about the modern world versus the natural world. It was the industry versus nature. It was, again, playing off the hubris of things. And it was about not accounting. It's typical for the Empire. Remember, in the first Star Wars movie, right, they're talking about the attack on the Death Star. It's like, yeah, I mean, the Death Star, its defenses are all built for big full-on assaults. They don't care. They don't consider one little single fighter to be a threat, so their defenses aren't maximized for single fighter defense. Remember that from the first one? That's part of their hubris. They're so confident in their military might and sophistication, they don't consider the natural wildlife to be a problem or to be a threat. And to me, I think the Ewoks are brilliant, and I think they're terrific little characters. And they are demonic little flesh-eating cannibals who will kill you. Well, no, they'll maim you and then roast you alive as you scream in the Andorian night. They'll spit roast you alive over an open fire and then rip the cooked flesh from your body and eat you. Then they will take your decapitated heads and use them as bongo drums in their late evening post-supper celebrations. Screw you. I love the Ewoks. Anyway. Captain Dirk Diggler writes, John, on the new Star Wars Rise of the... you got your lettering wrong. It's not Rise of the Skywalker. It's The Rise of Skywalker. Anyway, trailer. Did you see the color of C-3PO's eyes? Yeah, we just talked about that. My lovable C-3PO may possibly get to be more than just a Laurel to R2-D2's Hardy. Oh, yeah. And again, we saw other things where he's like wearing a bandolier in images. He's holding a weapon in some other things. I think we're going to get a little bit of a surprise with C-3PO in this. I think we're in for a little bit of C-3PO action. Sheepdog117 writes, did C-3PO activate insta-kill? Basically, I think he's got a little bit of that programming in there going. I think they've got him like a new set of programs. We'll see how they play that out. Okay. Next up. Patrick Conway writes, I hope Dick Van Dyke plays a big bad of WandaVision. Wouldn't that be a hoot? If he's like the villain, they get Dick Van Dyke. By the way, I didn't like the new Mary Poppins movie. Frankly, I was disappointed with it. I thought it was a poor film. But the best part of the movie was Dick Van Dyke. It would be great to see him pop up in this. Mason Larkins writes, do you think Sony is more likely to introduce Tom Holland in Venom 2, or do you think he'll get his own movie in the Sony universe first? That right now is the billion-dollar question. Because they got their plans for Venom. Now, granted, they've only started writing the script. We've heard Tom Hardy is involved in writing the script. They've brought on their director now who's giving it some oversight. If they wanted to, they could make Venom 2 as a vehicle to introduce Spider-Man into that universe, whether in a significant way or just in a cameo way. I lean towards thinking they'll save it, though, for another movie. Again, they could. They totally could. And I wouldn't put any money against it, but I'm guessing, and it's just a very vague guess, I'm guessing that they won't use Venom 2 to introduce Spider-Man, even though it's possible, and I wouldn't bet against it, but my guess is that they won't, and they'll introduce him in his own film, or they'll introduce the new Spider-Man movie and introduce, Tom back into the Sonyverse with his own film rather than in Venom 2. Again, I don't feel confident enough about that guess to put money on it, but that's my guess right now. Okay. Abel Contreras writes, all aboard the Rise of Skywalker hype train. Yeah, I'll be honest with you. And I was talking to Rob about this before we started the show this morning. I like the footage. It's not a trailer, but I like the footage they showed us of Star Wars Episode 9 at D23. Obviously, I loved the imagery of Rey with the red lightsaber. That's exciting. And I love that imagery of the Star Destroyers. But for the most part, it was, yeah, all right. It wasn't a real trailer. They were just showing us some footage to show at the convention. Meh, okay. It was all right. I didn't think it was mind-blowing or anything. Yes, I was very excited by that one moment. I kind of sat up in my chair and got a little excited at this one moment just because it was so unexpected and such a change of direction. But overall, I was not like, oh my God, this is the greatest trailer ever. I can't wait for this movie. It was all right. It was all right. I'll be honestly, I didn't even think they would release it to the public because it's not all that. I'm sorry, but to me, it's not all that great. I'm not saying the movie won't be great. It might suck. It might be the best movie ever. I'm not saying either way. I'm just saying that this little footage reel they put together for D23 wasn't all that great. It was okay. Nothing wrong with it, but it just wasn't great. So I didn't think they'd release it. But they did. So I was surprised there. I was really surprised then seeing how excited the people online were. Like every single top line headline and every single one of the news sources I go to were all some mistakenly saying new Star Wars Episode 9 trailer. It's not a trailer, but they were all headlined with that. Everybody headlined with that. And the response to it was great. And I'm like, okay, I don't see it, but a bunch of people do. Okay. Yeah, I was surprised, Abel. I was surprised how many people, and I'm sure not everybody is super excited by it. I was just surprised to see as many people excited about it as they were, because I thought it was okay at best, but whatever. Darth Impact writes, I think that shot of Rey with the red lightsaber is a dream like Luke in the cave on Dagobah. I mean, look, that's a possibility. That is the main operating theory of most people right now, that what we're seeing here, Rey with the red lightsaber, is either some sort of vision or some sort of dream or some sort of theoretical possible future, as, you know, Palpatine describes what he wants to do. That's the main, most popular theory right now. That's what most people seem to believe. Then there's the emerging theory that she's a clone. That's a clone of Rey. Or that Rey herself is also a clone. Who knows, one way or the other. And then there's some other possibilities too here. But that again, Darth, you're not crazy for thinking that, because that's the most popular theory right now. Most people seem to think it's some sort of vision or dream, you know? Steven Gonzalez writes, "Thank you, John and crew, for everything you do." Well, thank you so much, Steven. "After a year of unemployment, I finally found a job in the healthcare field. Seriously, there's no better feeling than starting a new job. Starting a new job is a great feeling. I remember, like, ever since I was in high school, like when you're starting a new gig, a new job, it always feels great, especially if you've been without one for a little bit. That's always a very, very cool feeling. So listen, Stephen, congratulations to you. Starting off, it sounds like a really good career to be in. The healthcare field is always a good career to be in. So congratulations on that. Thanks for being here, and all the best of luck in you and your new job, man. That's awesome. Thanks for sharing that, dude. It's always good to hear good news from people, you know? It's always good to hear good news from people. That's good news, Stephen. All right, Brian Clark writes, "My son and I were among the literal sweaties camping out on the concrete floor of the holding area to get into the hall for the big Disney Pictures presentation. 13 hours, totally worth it." And I joked about this weekend. Let me tell you guys a bit of a story. So this weekend, I did some live streams from my hotel in Anaheim, which is right beside the convention center. And one of the things I started off with was complaining of how disorganized things were at D23, at least as far as how they were handling press. Because first of all, the place they told me to go to, it wasn't clear where I was supposed to go. The convention center is a big place. It's several major city blocks, right? So it wasn't clear where I was supposed to go. So I'm running around. I finally find the place I'm supposed to go, get my credential. Then I'm supposed to go to another place to get my reserve seating badge. Okay. And it's at a place called Box Office C. So I ask the Anaheim Convention Center employee, "Where's Box Office C?" And they look at me like I'm crazy, like, "I've never heard of Box Office C." I'm like, "Oh, okay, whatever." And so I just started walking around the convention center, stopping at least 10 to 15 employees of the convention center. "Where's Box Office C?" None of them have heard about it. So now I'm late. I was supposed to be in my seat like a half hour ago already. It's hot outside. I'm sweating. I'm in a bad mood now, and I'm flying around. Finally, I come across somebody who knows where the place is supposed to be. I go, get in line for that. Then when I get in line for that and get my band, now they say I've got to walk around the thing again to get back in the building. So I do that, get in the building, finally get inside, sit down. It took me almost an hour and a half, 80 minutes to get to my seat, right? And fortunately, I got to my seat before the presentation started. This is for the Disney Plus presentation. So I get to my seat, and I'm all sweaty, and I'm in a bad mood now, and I'm like just running around, desperately trying not to be late, because I hate being late. I hate being late to anything. So I'm running around, sweating in there, and I'm in there like an hour and a half to get in here, and blah, blah, blah. So I do this live stream, right? I do this live stream from my hotel, and I'm telling that story, and I'm moaning and crying and bitching and complaining about, took me 80 minutes, 80 whole minutes to get to my seat. Where? Then, about halfway through the video, somebody who wasn't trying to give me a hard time at all, they just wrote in and said, "Yo, John, I was at the panel too. It was so worth it. You know, me and my friend, we camped out on the sidewalk for 15 hours to get in here. Man, it was worth it." And I read that, and I'm going, well, don't I just look like the fucking asshole now? Ain't I the asshole now? And I'm realizing here I am, like a whiny little bitch. Where? It took me 80 whole minutes to get to my seat. Where? Meanwhile, real fans like you, Brian, are camping out on concrete for 13, 14, 15 hours to get in and take in that presentation. Meanwhile, this frickin' asshole is here, And by me pointing my thumb back there, I really should be doing this. This freaking asshole's here doing a YouTube stream, whining and complaining like a little bitch. I had to wait 80 minutes to get to my seat. I felt so freaking stupid. I felt so stupid. Rightfully so. You know, every once in a while, you need a cold bucket of water of reality splashed in your face. And realize, dude, first world problems, my friend. First world problems. I felt like such and rightfully so. I was so embarrassed. I was so embarrassed when I read that dude's comments. And it was joyful. He waited 15 hours and he was joyful. And you, Brian, you and your son waiting 13 hours and you're joyful, totally worth it, joyful. Meanwhile, this dick is going, 80 minutes. Blah, blah, blah. So I felt, rightfully so, I felt so embarrassed. I was so embarrassed reading that. And then it put me right back in being in a bad mood because I was pissed off at myself for acting like such a dick. Oh my God. But it's every once in a while, we all need a cold bucket of wet reality water thrown into our faces and say, quit being so negative. And that was me. That was me. So anyway, Brian, thank you. And the dude who did it on, who wrote in during the live stream from Anaheim to remind me that these events are meant to be joyful. And I lament and regret that instead of spending the first 20 minutes of my time in that panel at D23, feeling grateful that I get to be here, feeling joyful that we're about to see this stuff that we're all fans of. And instead of having a sense of gratitude that, man, I had a reserved seat. I had a reserved seat. Instead of that, I spent the first 20 minutes whining and moaning like a little frickin' baby. Anyway, cold bucket of reality water splashed in the face, and it was well needed and it was well deserved. But anyway, thank you, Brian. And thank you, the other guy, for reminding me that these events are supposed to be fun and joyful and all this kind of stuff. And I'm glad you had a good time, man. I'm glad you had a good time. Murray Reich writes, over under 45% that Lando dies in episode 9. Oh, I'll go over on that. I'll go over. I think he deserves it. I think Lando Calrissian deserves a big heroic death. I want a big heroic death for Lando. And don't get me wrong. If we were going to get episode 10 next year, I would go, oh God, no, I hope we don't lose Lando. I mean, he's been waiting this many years to get back into Star Wars and now he's here. Let's let him enjoy it a bit. But, since this is the end of the saga, I think they're going to give him a big heroic death. So it's not 100% that he dies. I'm not saying outright he's going to die, but I'll take over 45% on that. All right. Brian Clark writes, not a whole lot of hype for Soul yet, and I think we may be sleeping on that one. I got major Inside Out vibes from that one, and Inside Out is one of my top 10 films of all time, so bring it. Oh, I agree. I think we are sleeping on Soul. Look, whenever you get into a movie that's going to deal with issues like that and be really deep and metaphysical and talking about the human soul and whatever, that's difficult to market and it's difficult to get excited about on its surface, much like Inside Out, right? Not to mention, we've got another movie coming first. We've got Onward. So we've got Onward coming. We got another Pixar movie that's coming up first that everybody's attention is going to be on. And then we'll worry about Soul. But I agree with you, Brian, absolutely. What they showed us about Soul looked really intriguing. And I am officially getting out of the doubting Pixar business because I've doubted Pixar before. I doubted them with Up. I doubted them with Ratatouille. I doubted them with Coco. And I'm just now out of the doubting Pixar business. This movie will probably be beyond brilliant. And I think it's not time yet to worry about whether it's not getting the hype it deserves. Because again, we've got another Pixar movie coming out first. After Onward comes out, let's see where the hype level for Soul is. And let's see what happens once they actually get real marketing going. And then we'll see what happens. Brian also writes, Oh, and it was worth the camping out just to see Dwayne Johnson come sailing out on a jungle cruise boat and to hear the cast of Frozen singing live. Listen, I'm not a Frozen guy by any stretch of the imagination, but I gotta say, they ended the Disney theatrical presentation with the whole cast, well, the four main lead cast of Frozen, including Idina Menzel, on stage, or Adele Dazeem, I should say. Adele Dazeem on stage, singing this big number from Frozen 2 together on stage. I'm not a Frozen guy, but that was a pretty cool moment. That was absolutely cool moment. And I'm not into Frozen. I like the first Frozen movie. I do. And I think the second one looks quite good, but I'm not the target demographic for Frozen. But even I got to say, that was a pretty special moment. And they very well done on that one. Well done on that one. I got to give them that. All right. Murray Reich writes, I've heard that some guy drafted Luck on his fantasy football team only 2 minutes later to find out he retired. Whoops. Here's an even bigger thing. So my buddy Ryan, who you've probably seen in some of my pictures. He's the guy in some of my pictures. He's a good friend of ours, who looks like Ben Affleck. If in certain pictures, like I've had people write to me saying, is that Ben Affleck in your picture? Anyway, that's my buddy Ryan. He is a long time Indianapolis Colts fan. You know, Peyton Manning is a deity to my buddy Ryan. And he's a longtime Colts fan. So I'm over at his place this weekend after I left Anaheim. Me and Ann went over there and we're sitting down watching some TV. And I said, tough time to be a Colts fan, huh? And he's like, yeah, I mean, whatever. And just as we're talking about that, this DirecTV NFL Sunday Ticket commercial comes on where it's a sports fan it's a football fan going, make this season the best season ever. And it's got Andrew Luck comes into his room in a Colts jersey. And then it's got this montage of Andrew Luck playing catch with the guy. And then Andrew Luck and him having a water fight while washing a car. And Andrew Luck and him ordering pizza together. And, it's going to be a great season. It's like, well, apparently nobody got the memo about Luck retiring. I'm sure they instantly regretted that commercial. Anyway, Manny Garcia writes, constant misdirections and possible scenes that never make it are getting a bit old for me. I find myself skipping a lot of promos nowadays. Am I alone? Well, honestly, though, like the big misdirect stuff as in the Hulk and Infinity War, like actually misdirect as in showing you something in a trailer that's not in the movie as a misdirect. That's only really happened with the Hulk stuff in Infinity War. So I don't mind that. As far as some material that show up in a trailer that isn't in the movie, usually that's completely inadvertent. Remember, these trailer houses put these trailers together long before the movie comes out. And they send the trailer houses a bunch of footage. They put trailers together. And then later on, during the editing process, maybe some of those scenes get cut out of the movie. But it's not important. I mean, for instance, that one scene in Spider-Man Far From Home where Spider-Man stops the bank robbers, right? Okay, that got cut out of the movie, but it was in the trailers. Does it really matter? I mean, it's not like, oh my God, I can't like this movie now because that scene where he stops the bank robbers isn't in it. No, it was completely inconsequential. And normally that's the case. It's like, hey, that shot from the trailer wasn't in the movie. And that's interesting to discuss and talk about. But at the end of the day, it's not important. Doing what they did with the Hulk in Avengers was significant. Showing Hulk in these scenes when he was never going to be in those scenes simply as a misdirect for the audience. But I can't really think of 2 or 3 other situations where that's happened. So I don't believe it's a growing trend. And I don't believe that's what we have here. I think that shot, again, I'll bring it up again because it's the topic of the day. That shot of Rey with the light, this is going to be in the movie. Now, whether or not it's truly Rey turning to the dark side, or whether it's a clone, or whether it's a dark vision, any of those 3 are legitimate and possible. But either way, this is something that's going to be in the movie. That I have no doubt about. Unlike the Hulk scene, that big misdirect of Hulk in Infinity War, that wasn't even in the movie, this shot is going to be in the movie. I have very little doubt of that. Not little doubt, zero doubt. I mean, there will be riots if they show this. If they show this image of Rey with red lightsabers and it's not in the movie, riots. But that very well may be a vision of sorts, totally legit. A clone, totally legit. Or Rey herself turning to the dark side, totally legit. Either way, I don't think it's a misdirect. They're not telling us what the context of this shot is. It could be anything, but I don't think it's a misdirect. And it's certainly not the type of misdirect like we got from the Hulk. As far as all the other times, and it's going to continue to happen because it's unavoidable, where sometimes shots will be in the trailer that don't make it in the final edit of the movie, 99.999% of the time, it's an insignificant little thing that doesn't actually affect the movie. So I'm not worried about it myself, Manny, to be honest with you. Anyway, Brian Clark writes, I knew the second I saw the two Onward characters interacting with just the feet of their dead father that Pixar was going to make me bawl like a baby again. I'm at peace with that now. Dude, they showed us. I don't know if they released the full thing yet or not. Maybe they did, maybe they didn't. I'm not sure. They showed us at D23 a full 8-minute scene of the movie. And it's include these two brothers voiced by Chris Pratt and Tom Holland trying to utilize magic, which has been gone from the world for a while, to cast an enchantment that will bring back their dad for one day, because the younger brother has never met their dad. And the dad put together this spell that should allow him to come back for one day just so he can see and get to know his sons as they've become adults. They're over 16 now. But something goes wrong and only half the spell takes root and their dad comes back just from his waist down. It's really funny and charming. And you're right, man. You're right, Brian. Cry time. I think there's going to be some big cry time in this movie. I really, really do. It looks like it's going to be loaded with heart and emotion and all that kind of stuff. And I think a lot of people are going to be, very, very much wrapped up in the emotion of it. And right now, to me, it looks really, really good. All right, let's keep things going now with Murray Reich, who writes, there are some movies that I wonder who wrote this crap, and that my friend is Shamhammer's The Happening. Let me try this again. There are some movies that I wonder who wrote this crap, and that my friend is Shamhammer's The Happening. Nothing made sense at all. And that my friend is Shamhammer. Oh my God, The Happening. I don't look. And The Happening isn't even Shammy's worst film. M. Night's worst film to me, and one of the most egregious atrocities against humankind, is Lady in the Water. That movie is a crime against humanity. It's so bad. And the story about how that abomination of a film came into being is almost as bad as the movie itself. And I won't go into it again here because I've told that story several times, but oh my God. It's brutal. But The Happening, you're right. How on earth did this get greenlit? How did this get made? It's serious. But my friend Soul, who has been on a couple of my videos before, he's over there. He's the CFO of the Fine Brothers. Anyway, my buddy Soul, it's so bad he loves it. It's like he can watch that movie all day because it's so horrendously bad. It is crazy pills. It is taking crazy pills in a world gone mad, Murray. It's absolutely really bad, but it's not even his worst. Now, he's on a nice little roll right now. Like, I wasn't thrilled with, what was it called again? Glass. I wasn't thrilled with Glass, okay? But it has some fans. There are people who like Glass. And his last two films before that were actually pretty good. Like Split and The Visit are actually pretty good. Like, actually pretty damn good, actually. So he's on a bit of a return right now, but man, he was in a bad slump for a while. Totally bad slump for a while. Okay. Slim Trav writes, will you be seeing Angel Has Fallen? I'm honestly not planning on it. I am a big fan of Olympus Has Fallen. I love that movie. But London Has Fallen was, let's just say, not as good. Let's just say that London Has Fallen, to me, was not as good. And nothing about the trailers for this have got me intrigued. On top of that, I'm not hearing great things about it. So I'm probably taking a pass on Angel Has Fallen. I'll probably check it out once it goes up on Google Play or something, but for now, I'm really not planning on watching it. Riley Ostage writes, happy Monday to you and the missus. Thank you so much. Okay, so I have to know, what's your go-to Zevia flavor? I'm a Dr. Zevia guy myself. That Zevia, by the way, I got Zevia in my cup. It has many different flavors, including a Dr. Pepper kind of flavor, root beer flavor, several others. I am a straight-up Zevia Cola flavor guy. That is my go-to flavor. I will get like their root beer flavor or something like that from time to time, but for the most part, I just go for the regular Zevia Cola myself, Riley. It's an acquired taste, but I've grown quite fond of it. So that is my go-to my go-to Zevia flavor, I should say, is the straight up Zevia Cola. That's mine. But I'm glad you're enjoying Zevia as well. All right, Ben Rayner writes, I'm buying into the Rey is a clone theory more and more. Would explain a lot. And if that is true, that would explain that vision in The Last Jedi. Yeah, I mean, it's true. But I don't know that the vision in Last Jedi needs explaining. Sometimes visions are just meant to be confusing and wacky and weird and interpretive, right? Not all visions need to have an explaino moment where this is what this vision means, right? But if you wanted to go in that direction, it would. I mean, the idea that, like Rob talked about earlier, that there are multiple clones out there, just like Rey, that would kind of explain a little bit. That would coincide a bit with that vision. But again, I think we might be looking for connections that either aren't there or don't need to be there. Could be just a wacky vision for the sake of it being a wacky vision, right? But you're right. I mean, it would work with that. It would connect with it. So maybe it would make sense. All right. K Major writes, looks like Kylo has the high ground on that poster shot. Uh-oh, Rey. I know, right? They might as well end the fight right there. Kylo has the high ground. I mean, so why bother carrying on with the fight? It makes no sense, K Major. She should just know when she's beaten and call it a day. So clear. I mean, it's like a spoiler for the movie. Obviously, Kylo's going to win that fight if he's got the high ground, right? It just makes good observation, Kay. Good observation. Mark Bad Olato writes, day one of year 2 of college, enjoying the John Campea Show from my dorm. Well, congratulations on making it to year 2, buddy. Listen, seriously, have fun in college. I loved my college time. I really did. I hope you are also enjoying yours. May you enjoy it to the fullest, and may you enjoy the show as well. So thanks for sharing that, man. I appreciate that. Eric Huffman writes, what do you think Warner Brothers' long-term plans are with the DC movies? Is it likely that the Batman and the Suicide Squad will be outside of the DCEU? As far as what are their long-term plans, I mean, I don't know. They haven't revealed that yet. Eventually, they're going to bring everything back around, and we're going to get another Justice League movie at some point. Someday, at some point, we're going to get another Justice League movie. That's undoubted. The question becomes, how long until they do that? Right now, they've made several statements that confirm that their plans right now are just to focus not on the shared cinematic universe, but focus on individual stories and individual movies. And I think and it's working for them. You know, Aquaman is a really entertaining little movie. And it made over $1 billion. First DCEU movie to make over $1 billion. Then Shazam came out, and I think Shazam is fan-frickin-tastic. I love that movie. I think it's the second best DCU movie just behind Man of Steel. And you know how much I like Man of Steel. And now we got Patty Jenkins directed Wonder Woman 2. I mean, as long as Patty Jenkins is directing it, I think there's a lot of reason to believe that that's going to turn out well. So they're on a good streak right now, and they're probably going to maintain that for a bit. So I think in some way, I mean, where we draw the distinction lines between what is DCEU and what isn't DCEU anymore are going to become blurred. All I know is that they're going to be very isolated. Whether they're in the same cinematic universe or not, they're going to be very isolated. And once they do that for a bit, then I think you're going to see them start to look at Justice League again. It's going to be a little bit, but I do think they're going to head back that way. But first of all, they got to keep crushing these ones. Their last 2 films, for me, they're 2 for 2. They're crowd-pleasing. They've made money. They're on a winning streak. Now, if they can keep rolling that on with Wonder Woman 84 under the direction of Patty Jenkins, that's a good, nice sustained winning streak. Then let's see where they go from there. And hopefully this Batman movie someday will actually happen. Who knows at this point? All right, let's see. Mark Badolato writes, also, check out Ready or Not. I'm going to go see that tonight. I am seeing that tonight. 100% I'm going to go see that tonight. Check out Ready or Not. Crazy fun movie with emphasis on the crazy, dark, funny, and a star-making performance from Samara Weaving, which is the girl everybody just assumes. Just last night, I was having dinner. Me and Ann were having dinner with a couple of friends. And I was mentioning, yeah, it's crazy how much that girl looks like Margot Robbie. And even my friends stopped and was like, wait a minute, that's not Margot Robbie? There are still so many people who just assume that that's Margot Robbie because she looks so much like Margot Robbie in those trailers. But I'm very excited to see it, Mark. I'm hearing nothing but good things. Thank you for sharing your recommendation, and I am going to go see it tonight. So I'll share my thoughts on it on the movie tomorrow after I've had a chance to see it. Terry Giordano writes, an amazing and glorious look for new Rise of Skywalker trailer. I can't wait. Again, I'm surprised how many people seem to like it that much. And I love the Star Destroyer moment, and I love the red lightsaber moment, but for the most part, I just thought it was, it's random little shots. It doesn't mean anything. It's not good or bad. It's just, it's meaningless. I don't get why people are so excited about it, personally. I'm looking forward to the trailer. I'm sure the trailer will excite me. But as far as this goes, I'm like, I didn't even think they'd release it. But a lot of people, Terry, you're not alone, are very, very excited about what they saw. And hey, that's awesome. That's great. Adrian Musio writes, hello, John. Hello, Adrian. Asinine question alert. Do we know who is Matt Smith's character in The Rise of Skywalker? What are the chances he is Thrawn? I think that's 0. Wishful thinking, but I would love a live action Thrawn. Correct me if I'm wrong, but did we not hear that Matt Smith was not going to be in the movie? I thought I heard they cut him out of the movie. I thought they did at any rate. Let's see. Yeah, I'm not sure. No, there's still... Let's see, what's going on here? In April, there was a story in Gizmodo about, is Matt Smith in the new Star Wars? Variety thought so, but Lucasfilm decided to stay mum about the whole thing. When it was revealed the cast, even Matt Smith himself refuted the claims, but the House of Mouse itself may have just thrown a new wrench in the works. Comicbook.com noticed recently, and interesting enough, the UK version of the Disney official website's page advertising Star Wars The Rise of Skywalker's recent trailer from Star Wars Celebration Chicago includes Matt Smith's name in the list of returning and new cast members. And to make it all more intriguing, and perhaps a little less unlikely that this was an innocent slip-up by Doctor Who-loving Disney UK copywriter, is that the wording on the Disney UK site is a match for the statement StarWars.com put up last July, announcing that the cast is just... it just adds Smith's name in between Kerry Russell and Dominic Monaghan. So, okay, I guess maybe he is still in it. Yeah, just when you brought up Matt Smith, I'm like, wait a minute, is he even still in the movie? I can't remember. I highly doubt it's Thrawn. I mean, you could work that in, but it just seems to me, and who knows, we've still got 4 months until the movie comes out, right? Still 4 months. Right now, it feels to me like Thrawn is such an apex character for Star Wars fans that if Thrawn was in this movie, they would have told us Thrawn is in this movie. Because even just for something like Star Wars Rebels, when they decided they were going to put Thrawn in Star Wars Rebels, they told everybody Thrawn's going to be in next season like a year before the thing came out, right? Everybody was psyched about Thrawn. By the way, I just finished the latest Thrawn novel, Thrawn Treason it's called. Very good. Anyway, I just feel like my main reason why I doubt that he's in it, but it certainly doesn't mean he's not. I won't fall out of my chair in shock if they do announce that he's in it. But the one reason that I doubt it is because if you were going to have Thrawn in it, you'd tell people Thrawn's in it. You're going to have Vader in Rogue One. They put Vader in the trailers. They put him all over the trailers. Now, Vader is a more important character to the Star Wars story than Thrawn is, yes, but Thrawn's up there, man. So I just kind of feel like they would have advertised that already. There's still time, though. So I'm going to say right now, Adrian, I doubt it, but I won't be in complete disbelief if it's true, because he would be a good match for Thrawn. I mean, sure, even just visually, if you look at the way they draw Thrawn, I mean, you look at Matt Smith, he kind of looks like Thrawn. I mean, minus the red eyes and blue skin. So it's a possibility, but I'm guessing no. So I don't know. We'll find out, though. We'll find out. Murray Reich writes, a movie like The Irishman getting released on Netflix, how do they make money? Well, they make money from Netflix. Netflix pays them for it. And then, then they continue to play. It's the same way anything makes money on Netflix. Netflix will pay an acquisition fee and then pay a licensing fee for as long as it runs on the channel. And so every month they'll pay the producers of The Irishman a certain fee for it running on the channel. So it's the same way they make money anywhere. How does Netflix make money? Well, they hope that the fact that they're making original movies like The Irishman will get some people to sign up for the network, but also get people to stay signed up for the network. So that's Netflix's strategy for turning The Irishman into making money. And as far as the filmmakers themselves, Netflix pay them a distribution fee plus an ongoing monthly licensing fee to have the movie on the network. You know what? They may not even have to pay that ongoing license. They may just bought the rights to the movie, period. So I don't know. Anyway, but that's how they do it. That's how everybody makes money, by putting something on Netflix. Emad Abdelatif writes, one of two. How do you feel about some directors like the Russos when they come out on YouTube to answer plot point questions about their movies? Seems a little desperate to me. Another reason why I respect someone like Nolan, who will never try to explain Inception to his audience. Oh, it's not desperate. When you are the #1 box office movie of all time, there's nothing to be desperate about. No, look, the Russo brothers and Marvel as a whole, under, the example being set by Kevin Feige, is very fan interactive. Not all directors are. Christopher Nolan is not. Steven Spielberg, who I think is the greatest director of all time, is not very fan interactive. He loves the fans, but he's not fan interactive. Kevin Feige is. There are a lot of directors who are. The Russo brothers are. It's certainly not desperate. When you are the biggest kid on the block, there's nothing desperate about it. It's just how they like to engage with their audience. They like to engage with their audience. Some directors don't, and there's nothing wrong with either. There's no wrong approach there. It's just a matter of what suits the personalities of the directors in question. Christopher Nolan, Steven Spielberg don't like doing stuff like that. Guys like the Russo brothers, Peter Jackson, they do like doing stuff like that. So it's not a question at all of desperation. Get that out of here. That's nonsense. That's not part of it. Now, you as a fan and I as a fan can have our preference about whether we'd like our directors to, engage in explanations and talking about certain scenes and things like that, or whether we like to maintain an aura or an aura of mystery about it. That's up to us as individual fans as to what we like and don't like. Steven Spielberg doesn't do director's commentaries, but I love director's commentaries. So I have no problem with it. I have no problem with either approach. I don't mind it when directors don't want to do that stuff, although I kind of like it if they do, because that's what I as a fan like. But there's nothing wrong if they choose not to do it. And there's nothing wrong if you're somebody like the Russo brothers who like to be very interactive with fans and answer questions and stuff like that. Nothing wrong with that either. Personally, I see no wrong approach there. But it's certainly neither. Does it look desperate? Not at all. Not in the least. All right. Jacob Ibarra writes, if It Chapter 2 makes over $800 million or even $1 billion, considering how well the first one did, do you think Warner Brothers will try to come up with a sequel and or prequel, or just start adapting more Stephen King? I do not think sequel, but Jacob, I do believe, listen, if it makes $1 billion, I guarantee you they are going to look at doing a prequel. I don't think a sequel is on the table, but a prequel looking like at an older story of Pennywise, like, hey, he comes around every X number of decades, look out, sort of thing. Well, what happened in the decades previous? What came up then that was that got him going and brought him out. How did he terrify and destroy families and children back then? If they make $1 billion, they're going to look at doing that. That may be a good idea. That may be a bad idea. Who knows? But if this movie makes $1 billion, Jacob, you bet your ass they'll look at making another one. But I don't think sequel will be the way they go. I think they'll go prequel. I think there's more story potential in a prequel idea anyway. So that's what they'll do. I'm not saying I like that idea, but when you have a movie that makes $1 billion, you got to look at it. And Warner Brothers will definitely look at it. And who could blame them at that point? All right. Angel Chang writes, looks like Ray will have a Batman's dream sequence. Again, that is the popular theory right now, that it's either some sort of dark vision, some sort of dream, some sort of possible future as being narrated by a villain or something like that. It's the popular theory right now. I'm leaning a little bit more towards clones, but that could definitely be one of them, Angel. Ben Burnside writes, one of two. I appreciate Tom Holland's comments throughout the week, but I really want Spider-Man in the MCU. Call me spoiled, but I was satisfied with how he was portrayed there. Call me unreasonable, but the news really made me sour against D23, and I loved the content. I just think, Ben, in a situation like this, let's take a breath and honestly look at, okay, do we have precedent of Spider-Man not in the MCU? Yeah. I would contend we have 4 great Spider-Man movies that were made completely without Marvel. Spider-Man 1, Spider-Man 2, The Amazing Spider-Man 1, which is a great little movie. The first, not so much The Amazing Spider-Man 2, but the first Amazing Spider-Man, everybody's trying to rewrite history right now. That was a great little movie. Got strong critic responses, strong audience responses as well. It's a really good movie. Number 2, not so much, but I can tell we've got 4 great Spider-Man movies without Marvel. Spider-Man 1, Spider-Man 2, The Amazing Spider-Man 1, and the best Spider-Man movie ever made, Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. That is the best Spider-Man movie ever made. Under or with Disney, Disney's Spider-Man movies aren't even in the top 2. Like The Amazing Spider-Man or Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse is the best Spider-Man movie ever made. Sam Raimi's Spider-Man 2 is the second best Spider-Man movie ever made. And then to me, it's Homecoming, then Far From Home, then you got Spider-Man 3, and you got, then Spider-Man 1, Sam Raimi's Spider-Man 1, then The Amazing Spider-Man 2, and then Spider-Man 3. So to me, there's that. And also, the MCU was just fine before they had Spider-Man. And they got hundreds, nay, thousands of characters they can draw from. They don't need to have Spider-Man. Look, I really like the Spider-Man movies made between Sony and Disney. I liked Homecoming very much. I liked Far From Home very much. I thought they were great. I love seeing Spider-Man in Civil War. And I really liked his role in Infinity War. And even though it was very small, I really liked his role in Endgame as well. Hi, I'm Peter Parker. Hey, Peter Parker. That was a nice little scene. Oh, this is nice. That was a great little scene. I like him in there. I would have preferred that stayed, but let's not pretend like there isn't evidence there, tons of it, that tells us the MCU will be fine and Sony will be fine too. Hell, the last 2 Spider-Verse-like movies that they made were Venom, which is a big crowd pleaser, made over $800 million. Spider-Verse, which is the best Spider-Man movie ever made and won the Academy Award for Best Animated Film, which doesn't really count for much, but still it beat out everything Disney and Pixar to win. There's lots there that point towards there's very valid reason to be optimistic. Would I have preferred them to stay? Yes. I would have preferred Sony and Marvel made a deal. I would have preferred that. But they didn't. Oh well. It's not all doom and gloom. Sony's on a roll. MCU's doing great. They'll be fine. They'll all be fine. And again, who knows? As long as there's time, there's hope. There's still a fragment of a possibility they could get a deal done. It's possible. It's looking more and more less likely, but still possible. Anyway, that's just me. Kevin King writes, there are many grr moments in the anime Attack on Titan. John, please keep watching it. It's more than a revenge story. Commander Erwin is the goal. I'll be honest with you, Kevin. I have a lot of people tell me about that, and that's fine and all, but I've got so much stuff that I should be watching that I'm behind on. I got a lot of stuff that I want to watch that I'm behind of. I simply don't have a lot of time to watch television. I have about 1 hour a day to watch episodic television, and that's when I eat lunch. I eat lunch. That's the one time a day I'll sit down and watch a television episode. And then 1 or 2 times a week, me and Ann will have some time to sit down together on the couch, make some popcorn and watch some TV. I don't have a lot of time to watch TV. And so I've got just too many other things that I really do need to watch without going back on something that isn't really for me. So I'm probably going to take a pass on that, Kevin. But listen, Kev, you're not the only one telling me that, dude. I've got a lot of people telling me I need to get on that. It's just that I got too much other stuff I want to watch and not enough time to watch it. So that's kind of my problem right now. Anyway, Ryan H. Don Epp writes, in your eyes, did Star Wars do enough to get fringe or dissatisfied fans back on board with their showing at D23? Well, here's the problem with the question, Ryan. The problem with the question is that's what the D23 was the presentation for. It wasn't. You see, we got to ask that question once Star Wars Episode 9 comes out. That's when you ask that question. If you want to ask it before the movie comes out, you at least got to wait until after the final trailer comes out. That thing they played at D23 wasn't even a trailer. It was just some random scenes cut together, intermixed with scenes from the previous movies in the saga. It was really just a little hype piece for D23 and a convention audience. It wasn't even a trailer. And JJ specifically said before they played, now what you're about to see is not a trailer. We couldn't finish the trailer in time. This isn't a trailer, but it's just a little something that we want to present to you. So the goal of that little D23 presentation of Star Wars was not to, this is what we need to do to get anybody who felt disenfranchised by The Last Jedi. This will get them all on board. That wasn't the purpose of it. Ultimately, that's the job of the movie to do. And if you want to ask the question before the movie, you at least got to wait till after the full marketing campaign has been done. Not after some little thing got whipped together for a convention. So I don't think, so the question to me is like this. Did Billy finding a quarter in the sofa and do enough to end world hunger? Well, no, but Billy finding a quarter in the sofa wasn't meant to be the thing that solves world hunger. But maybe he starts a fundraising efforts with that quarter, and then maybe later he does something that is meant to try to end world hunger, but him finding a quarter and that wasn't meant to end world hunger. That's what I would say here. This little presentation wasn't meant to do that. So I don't think it's a question I can even address, since I don't think it's a valid question yet. I don't think that's a valid question yet, because you're asking, did it accomplish this when accomplishing that was never the goal of it in the first place? Let's ask the question again after the final trailer comes out. And I believe we got 2 more coming. I think we got 2 more trailers coming. Movie comes out in almost 4 months. I think we got 2 more trailers coming. Let's ask after that. And really, we should be asking the question after the movie itself comes out. But, we'll wait and see. We'll wait and see. All right. Orange Hand writes, the more I see of WandaVision, the more I think that the Vision stuff is in Wanda's mind and she's kind of going insane like in the comics. Well, that's clearly what they're insinuating at this point, right? When we see, this is clearly not real. Like what we're seeing here, set in the 50s and 60s in a Dick Van Dyke-like setting, that's clearly not reality. So, but what is the nature of this imaginary world, this alternate reality? What's the nature of that? So whether it's in Wanda's head or just something of Wanda's creation, I think what they're heavily hinting at here is that this is outside of normal reality. But how worrisome is that? And how is it coming about? Those are the questions we're going to have to answer. But I agree with you, Orange. I think you're on the right track there. Anyway, let's see. Ben Burnside writes, I also want to say that I am beyond stunned with Disney from last week. It is extremely out of character for such a consistently clever movie company. It makes me wonder if we're missing a huge detail. No, look, everybody's got a bad day at the office. Steven Spielberg made a bad film. It happens. Michael Jordan missed some free throw shots. It happens. You know, Tom Brady and the Patriots didn't win the Super Bowl every single year. Just most years, but they didn't win the Super Bowl every single year. It doesn't matter how good Disney is. They're going to make stupid mistakes too. Everybody does. I've been unwavering on this. This whole breakdown between the Disney Sony Spider-Man deal, I 100% put the blame on Disney. This is their fault. They're the ones pulling out. It's their fault. It's Sony's property. They bought it fair and square. Marvel sold it to them. It's theirs. They can do whatever they want with it. And if Disney doesn't want to be a part of that, that's Disney's call. But Disney's the one who blew this. And that is coming from me as a big Disney fan. I am a Disney fan. But you know, when they make bad movies like the new Mary Poppins or Dumbo or Wrinkle in Time or whatever, Nutcracker in the Four Realms, you call it. Just because you're a fan of Disney doesn't mean you pretend everything Disney does is great. When they make something that I don't like, I'll call it. And when they do something I don't like, I'll call it. Doesn't mean I'm not a fan anymore. Of course I'm still a fan. I'll criticize the Toronto Maple Leafs to high heaven, but they're my all-time favorite sports team. This was Disney's fault. But look, everybody has a bad day. Everybody makes mistakes. Every company makes mistakes. Every sports team, every athlete, every artist, every company, no matter how good they are, they will drop the ball sometimes. That's life. And this is a situation to me that they dropped the ball. But anyway, that's just my opinion on that at any rate. And it was surprising. Anyway, Simple writes, WandaVision theory. It's like Mr. Robot. Wanda thinks he came back and the viewer thinks that too, and then finds out it was just her imagination. Here's the thing. They can't pull that. They can't do the old, at the end of the season, it was all just a dream. Like if you go throughout the season making sure that the audience knows that this is what's going on, then fine. What you cannot do is do an entire season and then at the very end reveal to the audience, none of this was real. This was all a dream. It's like, really? I think that'll just piss a lot of people off. And it'll piss me off too. What you can do is reveal to the audience, even if some of the characters don't know it, you can still reveal to the audience that this is a back and forth thing, that this is reality, here's the alternate reality. This is all a machination. This is all something, this is a reality warping thing. As long as you let the audience in on it, then you can do that to the characters. But you can't do it to the audience. You pull that, it was all a dream BS, people are going to revolt, man. They're going to revolt. Let the audience in on it from the beginning, you're on solid ground. If you don't, you're playing with fire, my friend. You're playing with fire. All right. Ross Pitt, Shark Hunter writes, the trailer that made me realize trailers can be a legitimate art form is for some reason the 2011 Winnie the Pooh trailer that featured Somewhere Only We Know by Keane. I'm not familiar with that. I'm not familiar. By the way, there is a reason that studios outsource their trailers to trailer houses, because it is an art form, man. It is both a science and an art. To try to, in 2 minutes, convey what a movie is, the DNA of a film, who the characters are, and do it in such a way that hypes up the audience to want to come out and see it, all in 2 minutes, dude, that ain't easy. That's not easy at all. I have known some people that have worked in trailer houses, and I'll tell you what, it is a huge, it's definitely an art form. Now, forgive me, Ross, I can't recall the specific trailer you're talking about from that Winnie the Pooh thing, but I'm 1,000% with you. Making these trailers ain't easy. We may think it's easy, but it's not easy. And because you have to make it look good and get the audience excited, make the audience want to go out and see it. Look at something like the Blade Runner trailers. They didn't get the audience excited to see it. It's a great movie. So you think, oh, doing a trailer for a great movie is easy. No, it's not. It's tough. And it's a very unique and specific set of skills to do that. That's why directors of films don't put their own trailers together. It's a different set of skills. It's a different skill set. And it's remarkable that so many trailers are good. It's remarkable that so many trailers are good because they can go south really easy. It is a remarkable thing, and it is. I totally agree. It is an art form in and of itself. It really is. John Liang just sends in a couple super chats to be supportive. Thank you, John. I appreciate that, man. Lucas Foster writes, when will Disney Plus be out in the EU? Love the show. No idea. I know it's opening in at least one country in the EU, day and date with November 12th. But after that, they have really not announced their rollout plans for the rest globally. They haven't made those announcements yet, but we'll definitely talk about it when that news does come out, Lucas, for sure. Darth Sidious writes, what do you think of the new episode 9 trailer? Again, it's not a trailer. It's not a trailer. I thought it was, other than the Star Destroyer shot, which was 1 second, and the Rey with the red lightsabers, which is about 1.5 seconds, that was really exceptional stuff. But I honestly thought that the footage they showed was, it's random out of context scenes that doesn't really do anything for me. To be honest with you. That doesn't mean I won't love the trailer whenever the trailer does come, but just remember, this isn't a trailer per se. The Sock writes, if The Mandalorian is as good as the trailer suggests, then Disney can lube up my cornhole all they want. Yeah, I mean, that was a trailer. That was a true, proper trailer, The Mandalorian thing. And oh my God, what a trailer. What a trailer. You know, one of the most interesting things about that, and people who hate Kathleen Kennedy won't want to hear this, but, and you know, I've got my criticisms of Kathleen Kennedy too, make no mistake about it. I've been very public about that, but give credit where it's due. You know, Jon Favreau came on stage and he talked about how he went and pitched the idea for The Mandalorian to Kathleen Kennedy. And not only did Kathleen Kennedy see the merit in it, but the first thing she did, Jon Favreau says, she said, this sounds good. I want you to work with Dave Filoni on this. This sounds like something that would be right up Dave Filoni's avenue too. So I want you to go and work with Dave Filoni on this. Now, Jon Favreau is the guy in charge. He did most of the writing, all that kind of stuff. But the very first thing that Kathleen Kennedy had Jon Favreau do is he went and Kennedy got Favreau and Filoni together in a room, and they kind of rounded out what this was going to be. From that point on, Favreau started writing the scripts. He would send them to Filoni just to get some insight from him, some notes. I think Filoni wrote one of the scripts for one of the episodes as well. And I think there was that marriage, that foresight of putting, Jon Favreau with Dave Filoni was a key moment in the development of The Mandalorian. And that's what a good producer does, is puts the pieces together. It's the job of the producer to put the pieces together. Now, ironically, my biggest criticism of Kathleen Kennedy up to this point has been her failure to put the right pieces in place from time to time. Like, how many times she's done 4 movies, and 4 different times directors have been pulled off of movies? Clearly, she hasn't done a very good job of making sure she's on the right page with her creators, making sure everybody's got make sure the wires aren't crossed, all that kind of stuff. She's not done a good job with that. And that's probably the most important job that she has. So I've been very critical of her for that. But, if I'm going to criticize her when it goes south, I got to give credit when it's done right. And for her to hear the pitch from Favreau, see the potential in it, and also realize this is something that would be really good if you worked with this particular guy that we've got, Dave Filoni. And she matched the two of them up, and the rest is history. And now this thing looks great. Now, don't get me wrong. This Mandalorian series could be absolute crap. Could be absolute crap. But it looks great. It looks amazing. Whether it actually turns out to be that good, we'll have to wait and see. All right, James Bonner writes, Nathan Fillion played an evil preacher. That's right. Nathan Fillion played an evil preacher named Caleb in season 7 of Buffy. I remember we were talking about Nathan Fillion earlier, and we're talking about all the different things he was up, and I said, did he not play a villain of some sorts in Buffy once? That's what it was, James. thank you, because I would have been an itch in the back of my brain if you didn't come along and scratch it. So thank you for that, James. I appreciate that. All right. Corey Gaines writes, I don't believe Palpatine is coming back in physical form. You're not alone, Corey. A lot of people don't. I think he is, at any rate. That's what everyone is assuming. There's no way he was powerful enough to come back to life. Either he never died, or it's a Force ghost. Well, Force ghost is not a Sith thing, so there's that. But I think it's possible he just never died. Look, he got thrown down that cavern. He got thrown down that thing in the Death Star. We never saw a body. Right? It's possible he was badly wounded and has just been laying low for decades, amassing his fleets, regaining his strength, biding his time. If nothing, Sith are very patient. Sith, beyond all things, are patient. And Palpatine is clearly very, very patient. So I believe right now, and I have no insider information on this. This is just me speculating as a fan. That's all this is, just wild fan speculation. My right now, which could change after I see trailers, real trailers. My theory right now is that Palpatine survived the events of the Return of the Jedi and had to limp off and just lay low for decades. And now he's back. Now he's ready to re-enter the stage. Could be wrong. Could be a clone, could be Force essence transfer, could be a lot of different things. Totally could. Right now, my operating guess is that he survived the events of Return of the Jedi. That's my guess. So I think you're right about that. I don't think he's a Force ghost, all that kind of stuff. I think he's back. He never died, so he's back. Anyway, that's my thought. But who knows? Who knows? Could be a million different things. I'm not willing to put any money on that by any stretch of the imagination. Devontae Brown writes, Breaking Bad movie El Camino finally revealed. Yeah, I wasn't so... I mean, it was really just an announcement. I didn't see anything to get excited about. I'm excited about El Camino. I'm excited about the movie itself. But I didn't see anything to get excited about that teaser, to be honest with you. But I don't know. Maybe I'm just jaded. RJ Patel writes, do you want Moon Knight to be hyper-realistic like most of the MCU? RJ is not hyper-realistic. But at any rate, I love the MCU. Love it. But it's part of its formula for its brilliance is not being hyper-realistic. Anyway. Do you want Moon Knight to be hyper-realistic like most MCU work, or world-realistic like Nolan's trilogy with better fight choreography? Yeah, look, as brilliant as Christopher Nolan's Batman trilogy is, one of the things you could criticize the Nolan's Batman trilogy is that his fight choreography isn't the best. Sometimes okay, sometimes a little weak, but not the best, right? And that's fine, whatever. I'm going to say, for me, I'm open to seeing what they want to do with it. You can go either way and make it brilliant. If my first preference would be to go more realistic, like a Batman thing, a little bit more grounded like Batman, but the fact of the matter is it's in the MCU. So they'll probably go a little bit more fantastical, a little bit more suspension of disbelief, and that's fine. That's totally fine. As long as you do it well and execute it well, make it entertaining, it'll all be on board. I would lean towards the more Batman grounded realistic, but I got a feeling they're going more of the MCU suspension of disbelief realm, and that's totally cool. That can completely work, much like the MCU's made it work in their other movies. So we'll see how that all works out. All right. K Major writes, regarding Mandalorian after show, don't do that, John. Don't give me hope for a new show, Weekly Hero / Best Worst Movie, Star Wars talk. My heart can't take it. Just kidding. Well, okay. With Best Movie, Worst Movie, remember, we always planned to do a bunch of episodes and then take a break, then do a bunch of episodes and take a break. Unfortunately for us, we had to take a break. We wanted to go 8 to 10 episodes with our first season of Best Movie, Worst Movie. But we only were able to get through 6 before we just ran out of time. And like I said, there's 3 of us doing it, right? There's 3 of us doing it. And right now, one of us is a little busy getting ready for the Olympics. But we will come back with season 2. Weekly Hero is coming back, but we did have to take a break for it. But yeah, this one is going to be easy to do because it's just a simple after show, right? Not a lot of prep goes into doing the after show other than watching it and then just getting on and talking about it randomly. So that won't be too hard. It will come back, and I'm very excited for it. Jeff Mullins writes, Red Blade looks like Kylo, same kyber crystal. That's my assumption right now. My assumption is the use of the same, or at least from the same batch of kyber crystals. Again, we have so little information right now that these are just baseless speculations, and that's all that is. But that's what my guess would be right now, Jeff, at any rate. Doesn't mean I'm right, though, so we'll have to wait and see. Valhalla Erickson writes, hate to say it, but Phase 4 looks underwhelming. The only movie I'm really excited for is The Eternals. Bring me some Cosmic Avengers. I don't, I'll be honest with you. I'm not all down with the Cosmic Avengers. I like more Earth stuff. And really, look, I think, first of all, Black Panther was great. So Black Panther 2 looks like it's going to be great. Now, technically, that's not Phase 4, but who cares? 4? I don't like what they're doing with the Jane character, but it's still Thor. It's Taika Waititi. Come on, right? I think right now it's not the popular stuff, but they are now in an era where they're trying to expand our understanding of the MCU. Iron Man's gone. Captain America's gone. They'll both be back. Black Widow's gone. The Infinity Saga is now wrapped up and done. And now they're in an era of expansion, expanding our concept and our understanding of what the MCU is. And I'm excited about that. I'll be honest with you. I'm probably not as excited for Eternals as you are, but still it's interesting. I just think there's a lot there to be psyched about. The one thing I'm not all that psyched about is the Black Widow movie. And again, I love Hawkeye's character and I love the Black Widow character. I do. But I like those characters, love those characters as supporting characters in the MCU as a whole. I have never been interested in a standalone Hawkeye or a standalone Black Widow property. So Hawkeye and Black Widow, not so jazzed about, not so psyched about. But I think everything else has worlds of potential. Worlds of potential. And who knows, maybe Hawkeye will be the best thing on Disney Plus, and maybe, Black Widow will be the best MCU movie we've ever had. And how can you not be excited about Falcon and Winter Soldier? I think that sounds amazing. Anyway, but we'll see, right? I mean, it's okay, Valhalla, for you and I to be excited about certain things and not excited about other things right now. The proof is going to be on how do these things turn out. Are the new movies and Disney Plus properties good, or are they not? That's ultimately all that matters, right? Doesn't matter what I am and what I'm not excited about. All that matters is, do these things turn out well? If they turn out well, it won't matter what I was excited about and what I wasn't excited about. If they turn out great, it won't matter what you're excited about or what you're not excited about. If you make them great, we'll be happy. You and I as fans will be happy. But that's what it all comes down to. We'll have to see if that's what they deliver or not. We'll have to wait and see. Keith on Toothman writes, couldn't Eddie Brock just discredit J. Jonah's story? Well, Eddie Brock wasn't there, number one. But, I mean, the whole thing about that thing at the end with J. Jonah and everything is, the government could just discredit that story. All you would have to do is have, who they believe to be Nick Fury come out and say, as a representative of this government agency, we can tell you that what was just said there is not true. All it would take was somebody just to reveal, oh, wait, that Mysterio guy, he was a disgruntled employee at Stark Industries. He got fired from Stark Industries. This was all it would do is just simple fact finding would discredit it. You don't even need Eddie Brock to do it. Like, anybody could do it. But I mean, you could do Eddie Brock there too. Could do that. Kyle Pajor writes, the more I think about it, if this means we can see Holland with Hardy's Venom, Carnage, and Sinister Six, I think I'd rather see the separation. I'm with you until you said Sinister Six. I am totally with you, Kyle, up until you bring in Sinister Six. To me, I call it the silver lining. Look, I would have preferred to see Sony and Marvel renew their deal. That would have been my number one choice. But if that ain't going to happen, then the silver lining is that we can now see this Venom, which I really enjoy this Venom, on screen with Spider-Man. That's a pretty good silver lining. I'm excited about that. That's got some potential there, and I'm down for that. But I still got a bad taste in my mouth from their attempt to get Sinister Six going before. Honestly, and I know a lot of fans of the comics are going to be mad at me, I don't have a big interest in Sinister Six. Not that I don't have a big interest in the individual members of the Sinister Six, but the bringing in Sinister Six, I don't need it personally. But who knows? Maybe they can come up with a way that would be absolutely fantastic. Have to wait and see. All right. Frederick Brooks writes, if I was Sony, I'd team up with DC and make a Spider-Man/Batman team-up movie just to piss Marvel off. LOL, love the show, guys. Well, thank you so much for that, Frederick. Now, of course, that's not something they're allowed to do. Like, we got to remember, when we say that Sony owns Spider-Man, what we're really saying is they own a license for Spider-Man. Okay? The difference is, if you own it, you can do whatever the hell you want with it. If you own a license to it, you can do whatever you want within the limits of the terms of the license. And taking Marvel's character and bringing him in and crossing him over with other studios other than Marvel itself and their characters, that's a no-no under the license. So even if Sony wanted to do that, which, how hilarious would it be to see Batman and Spider-Man in a thing together where Batman is constantly trying to educate Spider-Man. Like, why are you so stupid? You talk too much, kid, or something like that. It would be hilarious. It would be really funny. Maybe for a minute or two, then it might get kind of tired. But the idea of that is kind of interesting. But the bottom line is it's not something they can do. They can't sell the Spider-Man license to another company. They can't merge their character, their IP in with other studios' IP. That's just something that's limited under the license. So it's a cool idea, Frederick, that I'm sure a lot of people would think about, but it's not something that they even can do. There's a lot they can and can't do under their license, but as a license, there are limitations. And that would be one of the limitations. At any rate, excellent thought, though, and thanks for sending that in, Frederick. All right, K. Major writes, I think it's Palpatine who's overshadowed his conscience into Rey to control her. Hence, he is reborn into flesh, in a sense, just a thought. I mean, that's possible, too. It's possible that he's been floating around as an apparition. Ooh, I'm Ghost Palpatine. And he finds a body to possess, and he possesses the body. That's a possibility. I don't think that's what they're doing, to be blatantly obvious and clear. I don't think they're doing that. But at this point, with the lack of any other evidence to suggest things one way or the other, it's something you got to at least consider as a possibility. I think it's more likely it's a clone. And then I think the second most likely scenario is that it's a vision or a dream of some sorts. The third most likely scenario, I believe, for a part of this movie, Rey goes dark side. That's a possibility. And then after that, maybe the possibility of possession comes in. So it's definitely a possibility. It's on the table. I don't think that's what they're doing, but it is one of the possibilities. Kyle Pajor writes, John, you always mention the movie-going experience. That said, what's your most memorable? Might not be the greatest movie, but for me, Interstellar on the IMAX screen was something unforgettable. Now, I'm sure that was great. For me, I've got two that comes to mind. One was traveling back home. This is during a period of time that I lived in Saskatoon, Saskatchewan, Canada. Traveling back home to go to my favorite movie theater, which at the time was the Ancaster Silver City in Ancaster, Ontario, which was a part of Hamilton where I lived at the time. Or back then, to go there with a couple of my friends to watch Lord of the Rings Return of the King. Big deal. It was a big deal. So yeah, there's that. But honestly, I think my favorite movie-going experience is probably, and it was at a press screening of all things, but was seeing the first Avengers movie with a bunch of jaded, skeptical press people and hooping and hollering like we were at Hall H at Comic-Con. That movie, I still contend, I believe the first Avengers movie is probably maybe the most important comic book movie of all time. I still believe it's the best comic book movie ever made. But, I mean, that's up for debate. Obviously, that's up for debate. But I'll just never forget hearing a bunch of jaded, crotchety, negative film critics cheering and jumping and hooting and hollering. I've never seen that before. I had never seen that before at a press screening for anything. And then walking out of the theater, my hands literally trembling, going, what did I just watch? And talking about the Hulk scenes, a Hulk smash, blah, blah. It was one of the most memorable movie-going experiences I had ever had. And so I'll have to say that one ranks still at the top of my list, probably. All right. Sebastian Davis writes, hey, John, greetings from Michigan. Greetings. I used to drive into Michigan all the time. Cross the border there from Ontario. I used to love going to Michigan. I used to go into Flint quite a bit, actually. I love the light speed in this new Star Wars trailer. Looks so good and realistic. Hopefully the movie doesn't let us down. And listen, Sebastian, we talked about that earlier today too, right? This movie has to stick the landing for a couple of reasons. Number one, you're coming off of the most divisive, maybe not the most, I'll say the most divisive. The prequels weren't all that divisive. People just didn't like them. Last Jedi was very divisive. And you're coming off that movie that was very divisive. And this isn't the end of Star Wars. They're planning on doing a lot more Star Wars. For the sake of all the Star Wars they're planning to do after Episode 9, they've got to nail this landing. Because if they don't, and I'm not saying it has to be the best Star Wars movie of all time. It doesn't even have to be as good as the original trilogy. But you better be maybe the best movie of the new films. Yeah, I love The Force Awakens. I loved Rogue One, but this movie's got to be on that level or better. It's got to bring Star Wars fans back together. And if they don't, if this movie isn't good, or at least isn't good enough to avoid being massively divisive, then they've got a problem moving forward. Because then you've got two big, Solo was really good, but nobody cared about Solo because it's a Han Solo movie without Harrison Ford. Nobody cared. But so removing that from the equation, you're going to have two movies in a row that were really divisive for people. And that's not good. It's hyper important. They got to stick the landing on this. Kyle Bajor writes, do you think Walter White is still alive? I don't. I think it would be cool if he is. Because, Breaking Bad never did fake death. You're allowed one or two fake deaths. You're allowed one or two. But it seems to me like in the Breaking Bad finale, he was pretty much dead. And this isn't the MCU, so I don't think he's still alive. It'd be interesting to find a way to say that he is, but I think they made it pretty clear he's dead. Is the Third writes, JC, loving the work you're doing as always. Thank you so much, sir. I appreciate that. The new Star Wars trailer showed Rey possibly turning to the dark side. What could probability that this could be Rey's twin sister would fit into mythology of the Star Wars series? Well, that's an interesting thought too. That's a really interesting thought because you're right. If you go into Star Wars history, going back out of canon now into the Legends stuff, into the expanded universe stuff that is no longer canon. But hey, twins, there were the Solo twins, Jen and Jason Solo. Twins, historically, have been an important part of Star Wars lore. Luke and Leia are twins. You're talking twin stuff is an important part of Star Wars lore. And we've seen Star Wars under Disney go back and cherry pick a few things out of Legends to bring them into canon. For instance, the aforementioned Grand Admiral Thrawn. Whereas a lot of us are just jumping to the conclusion of clone. If it's not a dark vision, maybe it's clones. What if it's a simpler thing than that? What if it's a twin? What if when Rey looked up in the sky and saw her parents taken off, it wasn't just her parents taken off, it was them with their other kid. Maybe to drop their other kid off somewhere else. Maybe knowing that they had that force potential in them and there were dark forces after their kids. Maybe they were nobodies, but they decided to drop her off and just hider in the darkest hole in the galaxy on the desert planet of Jakku. There's a lot of possibilities there. And I think you're right. I think we are too easily glossing over the possibility that it ain't a clone, it ain't dark vision, it's a twin. Twins have played a major part in both Legends and canon. Luke, Leia, Jan and Jason Solo. Twins are a key thing. This would be very consistent with Star Wars lore were they to do that. I think it's a great theory. I think it's a great theory that we need to take into consideration. I really do. Excellent stuff there, I'm going to call you third. Excellent thought, third. Excellent deductive reasoning. Excellent thought. It fits in with Star Wars lore. It fits in with what we've seen, even though it was a quick one shot. It fits in with what we know. It's not saying that's what it is, but it's a terrific theory because it could potentially fit. It could be a piece of the puzzle that fits. And I like what you're thinking there. Thank you for that. And thank you for sending in such a big super chat, man. Thank you for supporting the channel on that level. We appreciate it, third, very much. And good thinking. Really good thinking. All right. Jesse writes, hey, John, just finished season 1 of Stranger Things, and holy hell, what took me so long to watch this show might just be my favorite season of a TV show. Well, I'm glad you liked it. And that's, you know what? It's always great. I kind of like it when I get caught up on or, jump on the train for something that's been popular for a while. Like me, I was a late discoverer. I was into season 3 already, I think, of Sons of Anarchy, or into season 4, maybe even, of Sons of Anarchy, by the time I jumped on board with it. Right? So, yeah, it's always great when you get on board. Now you're starting to see what everybody's hyping about. And I'll tell you what, I think I like season 2 even more. And season 3, I think, is my favorite season of the show. So you've got a lot of good time still ahead of you, Jesse. Not only did you discover the greatness of season 1, but now you got 2 more seasons that you get to get caught up on. A lot of good watching ahead of you. Enjoy it. I'm glad you like it. But it's always good when you can discover things that, everybody's talking about, and now you see why everybody was talking about it. And that's always a lot of fun. And again, I'm a little bit jealous because you get to do something I never get to do. You got to see it for the first time. And now you're going to get to see season 2 for the first time, which I'll never get to do again. And you'll get to see season 3 for the first time, which I'll never get to do again. So it's kind of a win all the way around. All right. Next up, Matt Torres writes, on the Rey image, the sabers look to be the crackling and unrefined style of Kylo's saber. Yes, they do. That he made. Not the smoother, more traditional saber. Maybe something, maybe nothing, but noticeable. You're very much on the money there, that it's very noticeable. It raises a number of questions. Much like everything in this little piece of footage does, it raises a lot of questions. But, as somebody mentioned earlier, could it be the same kyber crystal or from the same source of kyber crystals that Kylo used? Could it be something she gleaned from Kylo? Rey has never had to make her own lightsaber before. It raises a lot of potential questions, and I believe it's worth noting. Now, if it's a dark vision, doesn't really mean anything. If it's a clone, it means something. If it's a twin, it means something. If it's actually her turning to the dark side, it means something. So I believe that little the more under-refined thing of the red lightsaber, I believe it absolutely does say. The only way it doesn't really have significant meaning is if it is indeed what a lot of people believe, it's a dream or force vision or some kind of theoretical telling of what could happen in the future. Then it doesn't take on a lot of meaning. But all the other circumstances, all of them, all of the other possibilities have that having some meaning, and I think we need to keep our eyes on that, Matt. It's a good observation. All right. Stubble McShave writes, over under 40%, they intended to announce a Spider-Man film at D23. I'm going to go under. Because there's a lot of films coming out for Marvel in 2022 and 2023 that they never mentioned. The only one that they did mention was Black Panther, and that was just to tell a date. We know Doctor Strange 2 is coming. They never talked about it. We know that Captain Marvel 2 is coming. They never talked about it. We know they're going to do another Avengers. They never talked about it. So I highly doubt that they were going to talk about another Spider-Man movie. If there were ever plans for a third Spider-Man movie, it was clearly going to be either in 2022 or 2023. And they didn't talk about anything from those years except a release date for Black Panther, and that was it. So honestly, I think it's under 40% they were ever going to talk about it. Is the third writes, have you seen Barry Gordy's 1985 The Last Dragon? Yes, I did. Let me just make sure I'm thinking of the right one. Usually I'm like, I don't think I have seen it. Let me look it up. And then I realize, oh yeah, I have. This time I do think I've seen it. But I just want to make sure it's the one I'm thinking about. Oh, I take it back. Usually it's, I don't think I've seen that. And then I realize I have. This time it's like, yeah, I've seen it. And now I'm looking at it. I'm like, oh, wait, no, I didn't see that. That's not what I thought it was. That's not what I thought it was at all. So no, I have not seen that one. That is not the movie I was thinking about. So, no, I have not seen that version of The Last Dragon, now that you mention it. Okay. Travis Yokachonis writes, my imagination. Intermissions are secretly just time for you to slip into an empty room to dance your heart out. LOL, love and watch daily. Well, thank you for watching, Travis. You know, I think there are so many benefits. There are so many benefits to intermissions. There's no downside. The only downside is it adds 5, 6, or 7 minutes to the overall runtime of a film, but whatever. Everything else is all positive. It lets people who have a hard time staying off their phones a break to step out and check their phones so they're not doing it in a movie. It gives everybody a bathroom break, which is always good. It allows people to like refill their soda or popcorn or get another snack if they want without having to walk out of the movie and miss a few minutes of it. That's good. I just see nothing but pro. And I reject this nonsense of, oh no, taking a break takes you out of the movie. I don't buy that for a second. Oh no, there's a halftime in the football game. Now I'm taken out of the football game. Whenever you watch movies at home, you pause for a second to take a call, go to the bathroom, get something from the thing. When you're watching television with commercial breaks, although there's a lot of TV now today without commercial breaks, but still, it doesn't, oh no, the movie's ruined. I don't possess the mental capacity to now start watching it again after a 5-minute break. The experience for me is lost, I tell you. No, it's not. It's perfectly fine. We do not have the attention span of 6-week-old puppies. Okay? We're fine. When I'm watching a sporting event and they take a commercial break or take, period intermission or halftime in a football game, it's not like, well, I can't watch the second half now. I'm taken out of the football game. They took a break. I'm taken out of the experience now. You're fine. So I just don't see there being anything but upside for intermissions. I'm not saying you have to do intermissions. I just don't see any downside, but that's just me. All right. Dark Venom 89 writes, over under 50%, Venom will be the next Spider-Man movie. I'm going to go under. It's certainly a possibility. We talked about it a little bit earlier already, but I'm going to go under 50% on that. S. Beam writes, sorry for the confusing super chat. Should have put in 2. And now I can't remember what we were talking about, S. Beam. Sorry about that, buddy. Enrique 305 writes, any chance we get Man from Uncle 2 or The Accountant 2? Well, they still say they're going to do The Accountant 2. Which I love The Accountant with Ben Affleck. And, why am I freezing on the name of the dude who plays the Punisher? John Bernthal. That's it. John Bernthal. I love The Accountant. It didn't do well financially. Shame on you guys for not going to see it. It's so good. Anyway, they're still saying they plan on doing that. So I think a half decent chance we'll get that. Man from Uncle 2 is another. Man from Uncle was so freaking good. Armie Hammer, Henry Cavill, so awesome. Awesome movie. And nobody went to go see it. I think there's a chance they make it, but I think it's unlikely. But I think there's a decent chance they do The Accountant too. So we have to just keep our fingers crossed. I'd love to see both, though. I would love to see both. Ian Preston writes, can Happy continue in the Spider-Man movies or not? No. Happy is not a part of that. Happy is definitively an MCU character. He's over in the MCU universe, not a part of the Sony package. If it was, then Marvel wouldn't have been able to use him in the first place. So no, Happy cannot come over and be a part of the Spider-Man universe at Sony. Ali Hussein writes, I agreed with you that that possible is Rey clone. There is another possibility that Rey infiltrating the Empire disguised as Sith. Do you think that is possible? Unlikely. I don't know who she thinks she's going to fool. I mean, she ain't going to fool Palpatine. And just because somebody shows up at an Imperial hideout and says, I am Sith, sent here from our Lord Chief Palpatine. Oh, okay. So I'll say this, Allie. It's not the craziest theory. But I just don't see how that works. Just because you show up and say, I'm a Sith Lord, I don't know that people are going to buy it. And you're certainly not going to fool Palpatine. Funny how I have not sensed you before. What did you say your name was? Darth Daisy. Well, Darth Daisy, I haven't been around much lately. It's good to see that the Sith have continued on without me. Please come in and have some cheddar. Like, I don't know that that's feasible. So, possibility? Sure. I'll say it's not impossible. But I think it's pretty unlikely. But who knows? Maybe in the next trailer we'll totally change our minds. Maybe the next trailer for the information we have in front of us right now, which is very limited, I'm going to say I highly doubt it. But who knows? The next trailer could change that. Ali Hussein then follows up and writes, and then we're all caught up here, guys. Ali Hussein writes, one of two. Do you think future Spider-Man sequels is going to get $1 billion without Marvel's help? Oh, it all depends on the movie. You can't say at this point. If the movie's fantastic and great and has great word of mouth and all that kind of stuff, then yes, it could make $1 billion. Otherwise, it could just go on being a big hit movie and make $650 million, $750 million, $850 million, which is totally great. Movie doesn't have to make $1 billion to be a stupidly big hit, right? No Spider-Man live action movie has ever made under $700 million. And as long as they do that, even if the next Spider-Man movie just makes like $675 million, it's big, it's profitable, and everybody's happy. $1 billion, who cares? You know, Rob said it best earlier today. Like, for some reason, people are starting to think, oh, billion is just now the $1 billion. That's the bar now. No, it's not. Billion is still ridiculous. Only 40-something movies in the history of Hollywood have ever made that much money. It's not now, well, that's the point that you got to break in order to be considered successful as $1 billion. No, it doesn't need to make $1 billion. But could it? Hey, if it's great and it gets great word of mouth, yes. If it's okay or good and people like it generally, then probably not $1 billion, but it'll be profitable. And that's all they need it to be. It doesn't need to be $1 billion franchise. It doesn't need to be $1 billion franchise. Not at all. And then the second part here is possible in Venom 2 on the mid or post-credit scene that Peter Parker Spider-Man is going to be on them? Oh yeah, it's possible. Again, I don't know how likely. Let's put it this way. I think it's more likely that Spider-Man pops up in a post-credit scene in Venom than it is that he pops up in the movie itself. You know, because a lot of people speculating now, does Spider-Man then, is Venom 2 basically Venom and Spider-Man? I think they're too far into it right now to do that. I think they're just going to go ahead and make their Venom 2, but you can do anything with a post-credit scene. So yeah, I'm not necessarily going to say it's likely, but I do think it's possible. Anyway, all right, guys, that will do it for this installment of the companion videos. We are now all caught up on all the super chats that got sent in earlier today. Thank you so much, all of you guys who sent in those questions, not just because you gave us great fun things to talk about, but also because you supported the channel while you're doing it. And myself, Robert, Ray, Aaron, Chris, we all thank you for doing that because you supported us in doing it along the way as well. Anyways, don't forget, the John Campea Show returns again tomorrow morning. That's going to be me, Robert Meyer Burnett. Erin Cummings makes her return. She's going to be back as well. It's always fun having Erin on as well. We're already working on a couple of big stories. We're going to be talking about some really fun topics. Hopefully you guys will be here to join us for that as well. Listen, guys, do me a favor. While you're here, why don't you do a couple of things for me? Number one, click on that subscribe button. Become a subscriber to the YouTube channel. If you like these sorts of discussions, it doesn't matter if you agree with me or not. Just if you enjoy the discussions, give this video a thumbs up and make sure you leave leave a comment on any or all the topics we discuss here today. Just remember, when you're leaving a comment, you're talking to fellow film fans. Treat each other like you're talking amongst friends. Anyway, guys, that will do it for me for this installment of the Companion Videos. Thanks so much for being here, guys. My name is John Campea, and until the next episode, bye-bye.